the economy is bad, right? And I was like, yeah. I said, but whatever you believe is true. I said, that's the story you telling yourself. I said, I'm not saying that it's not, but I don't live in that truth of believing that. And I said, the reason why is because of my network of people that I have the privilege to coach and serve. In that frame of frequency from my life, I don't see or even think that there's a recession because of the environment I'm in.
Yeah. I mean, on the perception side, again, at the end of the day, money is a tool. So we give it a lot of power, and it's a tool that you actually control. So I start with that. Just understanding that, hey, it's actually an object and you actually can control it.
Our environment as a people, as a race, does stop us or block us from getting to that other side of the growth. Because even for me, and I think most people, they always say, get the bag, make the money. But then you make this money and you have it all saved, but what do you do with it? Spiritual Fitness Podcast. I'm back again. I'm your host, Eric Bigger, and I have the privilege to have my guy, a great guy, Cliff Goins the fourth. He's an author, investor, and he's really integrated and embodied in financial literacy and teaching, Black folks, Black individuals how to gain money and, build their wealth. Cliff, welcome to Spiritual Fitness. How are you today?
Yo, Eric, thank you so much for having me, man. I'm super excited for this conversation. Just happy to be here, man. Let's get into it. Let's chop it up. I love this topic, and let's go.
Yeah, so you have something that says the 5 biggest barriers to Black wealth. What does that actually mean, and how did you get to that ideology to be speaking about it today?
It's been a long journey to get to the ideology. I'll tell you what it means, and then we can get down to it. But I think about it on 5 different levels. One is around capital. So I talk about denied capital, and we can talk about a little bit of what that means. Another thing is around housing. So we call that devalued homes. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that. A third dimension is around income and earnings. So I call that diminished wages. Okay. Yeah. And you'll start to see a little theme there, right? And then, there's obviously a thing about how do you kind of invest and grow money. And so we'll call that delayed investment. And then the last thing is destructive policies. And so those are my 5 Ds that I call barriers that are blocking Black wealth. But we all talk. I like to talk about things that we can do to kind of disrupt it and to actually make progress on all those different fronts. But those are the things. How did I come to it? I've been an investor and a person who's worked in and around investments for my whole career. I've always had a passion around trying to help Black folks level up. A lot of that started on the personal finance side. But as I kind of got older and started being involved in some of the systems that deploy capital and invest capital, I realized that there are bigger things at play, right, that also affect our ability to build wealth. And so I think in order for you to actually play the right game, you have to understand what the playing field is. My latest book, Minding the Wealth Gap, is really about understanding that broader playing field before we go about solving the problem.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important to have the experience to kind of speak on the wisdom and the understanding. Because I do believe in life, a lot of people know things they don't understand. We know our mom, we know our dad, we know our grandfather, we know our grandma, but we don't know their mothers, their fathers, and the ancestors before that. And I'm curious to know, because it raised a question. I was doing some research because, there's something that you have written, that 15 trillion racial wealth gap. But when I think about money, let's just talk about money, because I like to get to the root to kind of understand the branch that we're in. I have 2 questions, and then I want you to speak on your idea. So the first question is, what do you think is the story around money for Black people today? That's number one. And what do you think the story around money was for our ancestors back in the day? Like, you know what I mean? Like, where's our money story, right? Then I want to talk to you about your story, but I know I asked a lot of questions, but those 2 in particular, then we get into those 5 barriers for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I think about our story today, if I put it into, a few words, it would be just, actually, I can put it in one word: complex. I think our story today is complex. I think, I think a fundamental understanding about money, that money essentially is an exchange. It allows you to kind of maneuver in the world that we live in. And obviously, if you have more of it, you can do a little more maneuvering. Okay. one of the things you and I talked about a little bit on the pre-call was just this idea of psychological trauma or money trauma. And I do think from on a broader community basis, our folks are a bit traumatized when it comes to how we maneuver money. You see some of that play out in just how we display when we actually do have money. And so if we get that, we can get into the deeper psychological piece around that. I think if we start talking about our ancestors, um, at least based on all the research I've done, probably the word I would use is just hard. It was just hard for them to come up. I go through a lot of it in the book, but I think about just if I just go back a generation to my parents, they legitimately had certain places. I'm from the Chicago area, certain places in Chicago that they literally could not move. And that was just like literally these are my parents. I'm not even talking about grandparents yet. Grandparents, you can multiply that. And so then as you start to go back in the generations, it just was difficult to maneuver and to actually even create wealth, whether that's from a property perspective or from a business perspective.
Yeah, and I mean it's true, right? Because you from Chicago, I'm from Baltimore, and growing up, it was even shoot, you got a wicked jump shot, or you slinging crack rock, right?
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
my families, they were in the streets. I played basketball, so that was my blueprint of like, okay, this is how I can make a lot of money. And then as I gained success publicly, and I kind of expanded my consciousness and who I am, I realized for not just black people, all people nervous system regulation. So if your nervous system cannot receive or hold the money you're bringing in, you're going to get rid of it unconsciously. So I had something back when I was 16. I should work at Foot Locker Foot Action, and my grandmother was like, "Hey, grandson, can you pay the phone bill?" At the time, Cliff, I'm making $6.75 an hour. I'm 16. I got my shoebox money, right? I probably had like 364, but at the time, like I'm saving my money. And I remember, I think the bill was like 313, so I just gave all the money. And the feeling that came over my body when I left was, it was like bittersweet. Like I was happy to get the phone turned back on, but then I'm like, all my money's gone. So throughout my life, I realized I had this pattern. When I get money, I'll save it, but then I'll find a way to get rid of it. It's like weird. I was like, that's where my money story started, right? Or you hear the word money doesn't grow on trees. That's too expensive. We can't afford that. So these are stories that we're programming in our community, or we find ways to shortcut the process to get something, but then we can't sustain it long term like that because we're taking shortcuts. So in your line of work and in understanding with your parents and your grandparents, where did your money story turn, and what happened in your body or mind is like, what, I'm gonna make a lot of money and I'm gonna be great at it? What was that story, or what was that pivotal point for you to get to the man you are today?
Yeah, so I would say I grew up kind of what I would call maybe lower middle class.
Yeah.
We lived in an apartment on the south side of Chicago. And after I went to school at Florida A&M University, a nice HBCU down in Louisville, Florida, Tallahassee, that's right. And coming out of Florida A&M, I actually landed a job at what's now known as Ameriprise. So it was American Express Financial Advisors at the time, and I worked in finance, but I worked for our advisor business. And so I learned a little bit about the financial advice business. And I realized that my pattern was, yes, I was earning a little bit of money kind of out of college. I wasn't making a bunch of money, making money, but it all was gone. Like I would earn it, and to your point, it was gone. And probably about a year, we'll call it a year and a half after having my first full-time job, I was paying a credit card bill, and I realized that I had no idea what I was paying for. Meaning, I had bought the stuff, whatever 12 months ago or whatever it is. I didn't know what I was paying on because I was just, the other thing, I was just paying partially, right? I wasn't paying the whole bill. So I was just paying partially. And I'm like, what am I paying for? Then I realized like I was a big music guy. So I had a ton of CDs, but I didn't have any CDs. Meaning I had the compact discs, right? But I didn't have any certificates of deposit. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like I'm working every day. I'm getting up early. It's cold. I'm in Minnesota, right? It's cold. And I'm going to the office. I don't have any money. And I was like, I can't do this. And so I really started just studying up on personal finance and financial advising, and all those different things kind of at that point. And that was really a turning point for me in terms of how I started to understand and approach money.
Yeah, and it's like it was that aha moment of you being aware of like, hold on, what am I doing? Like, what is this? You had that question. You asked yourself an empowering question. You ain't say, "Well, I gotta pay this." You was like, "What am I doing?" And that leads to answers. And I think sometimes we don't understand the power of questions or curiosity. And now today, you're the financial guru in a lot of sectors. To someone listening or who's going to watch this, young, man or woman, just in the world, black, white, Asian, and they don't have a lot of money right now, what advice would you give them to fix their money mindset or get into the space of how they should approach money, like their perception of money? Because I do think the perception of money is the different from the reality of money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on the perception side, again, at the end of the day, money is a tool.
Yeah. Okay.
So we give it a lot of power.
Mhm.
Um, but at the end of the day, it's a tool, and it's a tool that you actually control. So I start with that. So it's understanding that, hey, it's actually an object and you actually can control it. In terms of practical things, my big thing is just start where you are.
Mhm.
At this point, it's 2025. Like, it's pretty easy to get started, for example, saying investing with literally like 25 bucks. So to me, yes, you may not have a lot of money. Even if it took you 5 weeks, you probably could scrape up 25 bucks. And my thing is just get started. Get started. You want to get started building investments, building savings, building wealth so that you can start to understand practically what it looks like.
Yeah.
My example is this, and it's kind of old now, but so shortly after I had that epiphany, maybe about a year later, I got a little bit of a bonus check. Okay, it was
Mm.
a little bit of a bonus check, but I took almost all of that bonus check and put it into essentially an IRA, and it was literally one mutual fund. I had done some research, found this one mutual fund. I actually have that account right now to this day.
Hold on, let's know because I got a Ralph RA, I got mutual funds. What's the account? I
I
want.
want to give you, yeah, I'm gonna give it to you. I mean, I don't know if it's still gonna be performing how it performed, but I literally just have it as literally a separate account still now, just so I could. It's like my reminder of kind of the starting point and to see what the money did over time. So it's the Wasatch Core Growth Fund, if you want to look it up. WASATCH Wasatch, and it's their core growth fund. But I invested in it. I guess this would have been 1999 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I literally just left it alone. It really was the only investment I made into that fund at that time. I've invested it in different ways in different accounts now, but I had literally still have that one account, and it was my starting point, starting small, and then actually seeing now over whatever it is, 25 years, what's happened to that one investment that I made back in 1999. And again, it hasn't been all up and to the right, but it's done this.
You ain't got to give me the number, but did it you know?
It is 10 it's 10x what it was in 1999.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that, people. You see that?
Yeah,
Mutual
it's a
funds.
little over. It's like 10 plus X. It might be close to 11X.
And were you constantly investing in it?
So this was the thing with that one. That one truly was like my um test starter piece. I started investing in other ways and other accounts, but this was literally a direct investment into the fund at that point in time, and I literally have not put another dollar into it. So I didn't even. I mean, yes, I could have. It could be even better if I had done that. This is from a single investment in 1999 that I have not touched.
Wow.
Now, and I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying that was for me. We started talking about the psychology of it. That was me kind of having one place where it's like, look, here, I'm going to make this investment, and I want to see what it does over time. So that was just for me though.
So what is your 'cause I'm trying to figure out what the term is. Is it price? It was a dollar cross something where the money goes I forgot the terminology.
Oh, you're talking about dollar cost investing?
Yeah, where I guess you go like $50 a week, $100 a week, no matter what.
Sure.
Do you think that's beneficial long term if it's invested in the right stock or mutual fund or ETF?
Yeah, I think no matter where you invest, the dollar cost investing is useful. That's that. So if I think about my other investment accounts, that's exactly how I approach them. So you put in a certain amount either every paycheck, every month, every week, whatever your interval is, and you do that over a long period of time. The reason that it's helpful is because even folks who spend all of their time and all of their effort studying markets can't time the market.
Mm,
So the idea that everyday retail investors, as we are known, could do it is pretty far fetched. And so what you want to do is you want to be continuously invested and continuously investing, because you want to catch the market as it goes up and down. And that's what gives you a good cost basis. Because ultimately, most equity markets, I'm talking about equity right now,
yeah.
go up over time. And there's going to be some waves, but the waves are going up if you look at the long arc of time.
Yeah, I've been doing some research for the last year and a half, and I've been investing in like REITs, real estate REITs,
Oh, sure, yeah.
passive income, and it's interesting how how the money comes back. And I guess I've been using the drip formula where you just the money you make from that passive income to just go
And
right.
then you reinvest it. Yep.
And then there's another stock that I've been doing research on. It's I guess everyone says it's great because maybe they own like a lot of things in their ETF. I think it's Charles Schwab.
Okay.
Oh, and I was just like, oh, this is interesting. But to the people listening, right? If they just say someone had $100 right now, what would you say they should invest their money in? This is at
Hmm.
$100 a month, right? Because when I started my Roth IRA, I had no money. I was doing like 50 a month. Then I went to 150. Then I went to 300. Now I'm at 500, right? They took the yearly thing to 7,000 at 500 to make it 6,000 for the year. But to someone who just got $100 a month to invest, where should they put their money?
Yeah, I always do my caveat, which is I am not a financial advisor. So this
Right,
is
right.
not official financial advice. But I mean, I think the direction that you're talking is right. Depending on if you're trying to invest uh what we call after tax money, or if you're trying to do something that's more kind of long-term retirement oriented, uh I would say you want to stick, at least as you start, you probably want to stick with funds, right? So it could be some kind of equity fund. It could be a REIT, as you're saying, which is a real estate investment trust. But I would look at some funds. It's easy to, research the top 10. The more practical thing is to just invest into one of the ETFs or mutual funds that track, say, the S&P 500.
Yeah.
That buys you a broad exposure to the stock market. And so you probably will want to look at something like that if you're talking about equities. But as that those go up and down.
Yeah.
Right now we had a big swing down and then a big swing up because of some of the things that are happening in our nation right now. And so at the end of the day, we've had other shocks to the economy, whether we put it on ourselves or whether they came from other places. And you just want to stay invested.
It's so good because I think that's the thing of life. We only get upset when things don't go our way, but life is not, life is rhythms, right? The sun has to come out, then it's dark, right?
Right, right.
I want to shift pivot just for a second because I think this is important. So, like I said, I went to Hampton University. You went to Florida A&M, and we had Dr. George Frazier at a conference, the Black Family Conference, and he talked about the wealth gap, right? And he talked about money. He said a lot of it has to do with that Black people are not getting married anymore, right? So I was like, okay, that's interesting, because that has something to do with your wealth accumulation. But he also said something at the end that I'll never forget. He said, you learn, you earn, and then you return. He said, as Black folks, we learn, we earn, but we never return. And I see that consistently, that when people make it, you say the biggest athletes or entertainers, the Jay-Z's, the Floyds, whatever. I'm not saying they don't return, but you never see these very, very successful, Black men talking about education. They do talk about financial literacy, but it does feel like we leave and we never return. Why do you think that is a thing, or is that just a stereotype that's not true or a myth?
I mean, it's probably a mix of both. I mean, I think if you think about, it sounds like from return he means kind of seed the next generations of
Yeah.
potential successful people. Let's just leave it at that.
Mhm.
I think part of it is, my experience as a Black person navigating corporate,
Mhm.
navigating the investment world, navigating capital markets. Like, it's hard.
Okay.
So sometimes you kind of get through it and you kind of like, whew,
At
and
least
at least I made it. You know what I
hey,
mean?
that's
And
real.
so I think that probably plays a little bit into it. That's just my intuition, just kind of thinking about that
That's
sort of
real.
thing.
You tapped into something because you making me think now. Growing up in Baltimore and then making it out, and I think to people listening and people who are Black or might not Black, I think what he's really saying is that when you leave our culture of whatever it is, poverty or not as much, is a texture of energy that you leave. And I can't say it's heavy, it's just different. And so when you get out of that, it does feel like the sigh you just did, like, okay, right? And then people live in like nice neighborhoods, it's more peaceful, it's quiet, you got some consistent cash flow, you might have a family, and you just want peace because the process it took to get there was maybe traumatic or tough or challenged. I know for me, going from having to code switch, or at least I think I do, or maybe I should shave my beard and be clean shaven because I don't know if they're gonna accept me, right? I'm not even saying that this is a reality, but this is my mind. This is me thinking. And then you grow and you go, like, oh, I made some money. Oh, I know this person. And then you get there, then you see your peers like, oh man, you Hollywood, you change, and you're trying to. It's so much coming at you in those moments that people don't get to see that because no one talks about it.
Right.
But that I respect that. I've never heard it, and I think that is so profound, and that's probably the main reason why people don't return. Like, me going back to my university was in me, like, you know what? I've gained all this knowledge and wisdom and have some public success. I wanna share with the young men and women because I was just there 15 years ago. I sat in Ogden Hall. I graduated. Barack Obama, spoke at my graduation. So I have the history of being at Hampton. So let me give you some of my wisdom on life and what I had to grow through. And I think what you're doing with the wealth gap, definitely want to get into the five barriers, is so important because most people don't even know there's a gap. They just trying to make it. They just trying to survive to get the next paycheck to get to the other side of the day or life or the week.
That's right.
So, as much as you can share, got to go all in, but just can you start with like the first and then go through the five and how we can kind of approach or attack those 5 points, uh,
Yeah.
the barriers of, because the solutions is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So if you think about, the first one was really about denied capital. That's really about investing in entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, right?
Okay.
Investing in businesses. If you look at the broad arc of kind of investment dollars and how they flow to the Black community, particularly around private businesses,
Mhm.
um, based on the studies that are out there, it's definitely less than 2% of that capital is really
Yes.
flowing to our businesses. And so there are some folks out there who are actually who have actually raised funds to actually attack this problem. And some of them are people like Marcus Torbert, who's at Fifth Century Partners, that's actually based out of here in Chicago, or Chandron Thomas, who's one of the people featured in the book, who has a firm called the Copia Group, where they are trying to deploy hundreds of millions of dollars into Black-owned, Black-run businesses. Another gentleman, Ken Saffold, out of Atlanta, who has a firm called O15, where they also are doing some similar things. And so it's really the idea of taking investment dollars that flow to private businesses and intentionally flowing those dollars to Black-owned, Black-run companies to unleash what's really untapped potential. And so that's how we go from, having kind of denied capital to actually having access to capital to help grow entrepreneurship. That's really that pillar. That pillar is really about entrepreneurship and secondarily job creation from that entrepreneurship.
When you say deploy, what does that terminology actually mean?
Yeah, deploy just means invest. If there was, bigger enterprises and it's a podcast business, but you know, you're like, look, I have my own podcast, but I actually think there are 100 other folks who should be doing podcasts, and I want to be a production company for those folks, and I need, $10 million to do that. It's going to source that $10 million and make that reality, come to fruition. And so again, it's things like that, or if you were like, hey, I want to go out and buy a podcast production business,
Mhm.
uh, these are the types of funds who could potentially buy, back that kind of strategy, as long as it made sense and made money for their investors.
Yeah, and it's so good, right? Because, I like to get, like I said, the root of things. And I'm curious, and you could be transparent. I would love you to be transparent and hold me accountable because sometimes, I'm living from my way of being, my way of life. There's a book called The Psychology of Money, and he was saying based on the year you were born is based on like your paradigm of how you see money, baby boomers, the stock market crash, all these things. But do you think, as a black man, right, growing up in your era and just life, do you think the stereotype or the perception that we're a minority, or I can't even say that we play the victim, right? That has some type of impact on our energy of receiving, the investment in a black business, or not allowing ourselves to see a more growth mindset behind what we're doing. Because I don't think you have a fixed mindset around money and wealth. I feel like you have a growth mindset. You seem like someone is like, I'm gonna make this money, and you take that approach. Not that those things don't matter, Black history, slavery, like all those things. I'm not saying that, but I do think if we continue to perpetuate that story of history, it does keep some of us in this low frequency of not enough. I don't know how we're going to do that, just energetically.
One of the topics that people would like to talk a lot about, because at the end of the day, most of us want to understand tangibly. Okay, I hear all this great stuff you're saying, Cliff, but tangibly, how do I actually attack this problem? And so a lot of people want to talk to me, mostly if I have to put it in a box, about how do I close my personal wealth gap. And
Mm,
so I think you're starting to tap into what some of the barriers there is. The biggest thing is really around your mindset. To your point, do you have a more of a growth mindset, or do you have a fixed mindset?
yeah.
Can you acknowledge, in this case, because we're talking about these barriers, that these barriers do exist and still chart a path forward knowing that they exist? And are you willing then to actually put in the work, because it is work,
Mhm.
to actually start to translate that new growth mindset into different habits, right? Which then allow you to start to really understand and implement different tactics, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you think about even saving or building wealth, what we're saying is, hey, whenever you bring in money, some of that money actually needs to be reinvested essentially into your future self.
Got it.
And if you don't believe or hope that you even have that future, you're probably not going to do that. Or if you don't start to build the habit where, okay, I got $100, I'm shaving off 10 of it immediately, then you never really get to the point where we can really start really talking tactics around buying a business, or investing in a much larger scale around stocks and mutual funds and things of that nature. And so I do think that we carry a lot of psychological baggage as
Yeah. Like a
Africans living
big
in
one.
America. And some of it is because of our lived reality. I mean, we are literally, most of our relatives are cordoned off into what I call these little poverty zones.
Mm.
And you end up in this poverty cycle. You got poor schools, you got, poor policing efforts, you got, just put all the things that you and I have kind of come through,
Yeah.
right? And then you're expected, because you're in America and everything is equal, which is not, but everything's equal. You expected to just, pull up by your bootstraps and make your way out of it. Well, a couple of us did. A couple of us are on this point podcast because we
Yeah.
did, but we're not the majority of Black Americans. We're not the majority of Black families.
Yeah.
And so unless we start to not only attack our mindset and things that we can do individually, but actually attack some of these systems, we'll still have a bunch of people in that same cycle.
Yeah, and I think it's so true, right? The consciousness of our people, just consciousness of anyone. I was on the phone with a relative yesterday, and he was like, "E man, like the economy is bad, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "But whatever you believe is true." I said, "That's the story you telling yourself." I said, "I'm not saying that it's not, but I don't live in that truth of believing that. And I said the reason why is because of my network of people that I have the privilege to coach and serve. A lot of my clients are high end successful earners. They make multi millions of dollars. So in that frame of frequency for my life, I don't see or even think that there's a recession because of the environment I'm in. So they're working hard, they're going through stuff. So I'm also realizing our environment as a people, as a race, does stop us or block us from getting to that other side of the growth, right? Because even for me, and I think most people, they always say, get the bag, make the money. But then you make this money and you have it all saved, but what do you do with it? No one tells you what to do. They just give you these general work hard, save your money, but you don't know where to invest it. You don't know where to put it. And everyone's like, go buy property, go buy land. It's like, why is the same routine for everybody? I don't get that. Like, is that the only way to scale your wealth is buy land, buy property, which is fine. I just think it's like a generic way of, and then people think like, I don't got enough money to buy land. I don't have enough money to afford property. And I'm curious from your standpoint, and I talked about this before, and I said, I want to talk about something deep, Cliff. He's like, let's go. And I was, because we go back to the 15 trillion racial wealth gap. I was like, what if as a race of people, we're not supposed to accumulate that much wealth, right? Just hypothetically thinking. Just say that's another thing. However, what if it's us to be regulating our nervous system, to feel safe in our body, safe in our mind, to kind of be debt free, to have good money, but we ain't got to go chase 100, 200, 300 million. We're just chasing that within our vibration on how we feel the day to day, clearing out our trauma, having healthy relationships, having love around. And that is our wealth. Because sometimes I feel like the people, I would just say white people who own things, you don't see them, or at least I don't know that, but this is what I think. They're not trying to be LeBron James. They're not trying to dunk a basketball, right? Maybe some of them are, but I feel like they look at life different where they try to build structures around they can depend on our energy to make money off of. I was telling a buddy the other day, I said, Wallow and Gilly are from Philly. And I said, a white man gave them 100 million, supposedly. No black man did that. And I said, I do think as a community of people, we are selfish with each other, not in a way that we owe each other anything, but it just feel energetically. If I got something, I want to get more than you, right? If I got this type of client, I'm gonna go get this client. But it's not like, how do we come together and we had these, it's just a lot. But I'm just curious, for you, what do you think is the easiest way for us to close this personal wealth gap? We're gonna say personal wealth gap within our community of people to feel safe where we're at instead of going to like, I want 20 mil, I want 30 million, I want 40 million. I mean, because cool, I want to be a billionaire. I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, yeah. But I'm just saying, I feel like if we could just trust the love we give each other, like if you're my brother and like, man, Cliff, I love you, like big brother, you helped me so much. And then you pour into me and I'm pouring into you. I think that energy will close the wealth gap because we're pouring into each other. And then I can do something that you probably don't have the opportunity, and you can do it. Then we just keep building. And next thing you know, we own $100 million tech company. Oh, because we've been investing in the energy of our relationship with love and accountability, and say, E, do this, don't do that, right? And I think I'm coming from a perspective, at least for my family, people close, like how can I love them? Because I got programmed to just every time I see people I love, give them money, give them money, give them money, give them money, give them. But they're not changing.
Yes, there's a component of wealth that's you call non-material wealth. It'd be like spiritual wealth, right?
Yeah.
Mental wealth, right? They're definitely kind of non-material. Obviously, when I'm talking about the $15 trillion, I'm talking about material wealth. One of the things you said is pretty accurate, which is there really is no separation of material wealth from spiritual wealth and mental wealth. And so they all do have to kind of work in tandem together. I think the other thing you touched on is this idea of relationships and maybe what you would even call cooperative economics, which could, help. If you think about us, quote unquote, solving the problem ourselves, or at least trying to get after the problem ourselves. I do think there's a math challenge And even if all of Black America banded together to do the things that you're talking about, we're still talking about centuries and centuries of a wealth gap. That's neither here nor there. You can read the book if you want to delve deeper into that. But I think that yeah, there are individual efforts we could take as a community. So you gave a good example. Hey, I can't afford to buy a property. Okay, but could five of you all, could 10 of you all afford to buy one together? And could that be the start? And it doesn't mean that forever and for always you all have to buy properties together, but that might be the way we have to start. And we have to be open to that because, quite frankly, that's exactly what our counterparts are doing.
Yeah.
And now they just do it at a much larger level. So I did a little work in private equity, and they would do these things that are quote unquote called club deals. You know what a club deal means?
Yeah.
It means that I have $100 million fund. You have a $300 million fund. You have a $1 billion fund. And for this particular investment, we're going to club up. I'm going to put in 10 million. Your fund is going to put in 30 million because it's based on kind of what you can afford. And hey, you're the $1 billion fund. So you're going to lead this deal and you're putting up whatever, 200 million. And we're going to go buy this bigger company together as a quote unquote club deal. And so people are doing that at the very highest levels of wealth. And so certainly we can do that at the lower levels. But you got to be open to doing that. And it takes some sacrifice. It takes, somebody to kind of take the lead. It takes some people to take their ego off the table. And yeah, sometimes there's arguments, there's contentions. Like this happens at the highest level of business all the time. But to your point, we gotta change our mentality. I don't. That was a lot. I don't know if I even answered your
No,
question, but
listen,
that's what
listen,
came to me
bro,
as you were
listen.
talking.
Cliff, let me tell you something. This is why I'm so inspired by you. I don't know why I was like, 'cause I was on your page. I'm like, I could just see your energy. I'm like, I just love this guy. Like, I could just tell he wants to help people. Like, I can feel it in like you just a good person.
Yes.
I really appreciate it. So this is what I've been learning in my life. It's always the little things, right? I have a mentor. He say, Eric, it's the small balls that win the games, not home runs.
Mm.
Just get on base. And that information that you just shared, I'm going to repeat it so people take note, listen. You said the club deal thing. That was one thing, right? But how about five of us come in on an opportunity on a property? Wow. Like that alone is like, well, if they're selling this for 200 million and I got, 20 million, you got, a billion and this person got, we put our money together. Cause I'm like, how are these people owning all these apartment buildings? Like, what are they? I'm thinking it's all their money. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. So that's the information I feel like our people are missing. And we're all trying to be this individual superhero where we can collaborate, come together to demonstrate. And that is how people from my ears to your hearts to your souls, what I'm getting from this man's higher self is that we come together and that's how we close the wealth gap. And we have to drop the egos. We have to be open to different. We got to be a little bit more selfless is not selfish. Because then if you own everything individually, what does that mean? And so what?
Right.
And it's all these people over here suffering, but yet you're the only one on the top of the food chain. Now you understand why these people want to take what you have. That right there just shifted something in me because it's simple.
Mm.
Not esoteric. It's not, smart goals. And it's like, no, if you have some money and some other people have some money, you guys come together, you buy some property or you invest together and you can close a wealth gap, not even in the world, but just within your family. And it just makes a difference. And it goes back to community, relationships. Relationships run the world. And I'm excited because what's next for you? Like I know you got the book, right? You got the book, but you're not doing no talks. You're not putting out no courses. Like what's next for CG? What's next for Cliff?
Yeah. We're working on the talks. I have a couple of ideas around
Yeah.
a few tours we want to do around the country. So we're working on that. I got to get some sponsorship money for that though. And yeah, just personally, just investing in private businesses, trying to build out a portfolio there. And Yeah, we'll see if there's another book in the works. People keep asking me about that. That I'm not quite sure about. We'll see kind of how things go with this. But yeah, definitely trying to get more talks and events on the calendar. So just stay tuned and look out for that.
We need that from you. We need, because I think what I'm learning, in the spiritual realm of people and all people, is not always about what we have or what we do. More important is about who we are. And I think what comes through your vessel, through your voice, that God in you that comes out, I feel like it makes people listen. It doesn't even matter about how much money or where you went to school, what you invested in, just who you are. Like the energy of that coming through is what I think we need to see more, just in a visible standpoint. Because then you giving me inspiration. I'm like, oh, this is a brother. Like, look.
I appreciate that.
And I want to ask a personal question right now.
Sure.
Do you have any awareness or wisdom or understanding of how to scale like a restaurant business?
So I will say I did own a retail business for
Yeah.
a minute. Uh, Here's just some generic things about restaurant businesses that I've learned just on the investment side, right?
Yeah.
One, very important that you have the right people in place,
Got it.
right? Two, just fundamentals of the business, usually lower margin businesses. So you really need to be sharp on your operation and sharp on how you think about your managing your financials. Third, maybe most important thing, if you're in a retail format, restaurant format, if you really want to actually grow and create a sustainable business, you have to be thinking about multiple locations. If you just have a single concept, single location concept, again, you can do that. It'll be a lifestyle business. You can maybe make a little bit of money. But if you really want to build a business, you got to be thinking multi-location, really off the bat. And so those would be three things. Just that's just generic. Never run a restaurant, never worked in one, but I did run a retail business, which would have some similar um, attributes. So
Yeah, and I'm saying that because we got a family restaurant here in Baltimore, and it's really successful. And I think that's where we're at. Like we want to scale, we want to open up more locations, but we can't find that one person or that thing to help because it's been around for 10 years and it's been successful. But it's only here, and people love the food. People come from Philadelphia, New York, just to try the food. So I'm just so curious, like, and I've been looking and doing research and trying to connect with people. How do we, get to that person or that thing to change it? But that's another conversation. But I just wanted to get it on air just so people, because people might be listening, might have a restaurant, they might think, but it makes sense. Like if you really want to scale, and that's where we at, we want to scale. At least open two more in the DMV area, right? But yeah, man, Cliff, this has been great. I'm looking forward to your speeches, more books, just you talking. I think you have so much wealth of knowledge,
thank you.
and you speak in a way where we can, and where it's relatable and we can understand it. And I think sometimes, terminology, I always say language matters. And like you said, I asked the word, what does deploy mean? So a lot of us, people who don't have the information or who are not on the frequency, when they hear that from someone and they see you, look and dress up, they just turn their ear or their eye.
Sure.
They're not even open to receiving the rest because I don't know what that means. This guy's, jeez, I don't.
Right.
We give up, right? Because we don't relate. How can the listeners and the people watching, find you? What are you offering right now other than the book? Are you on Instagram, Facebook? Like, how can we get into your world?
Yep. Yeah. My IG is I am Cliff Goins the fourth. So at I am Cliff Goins the fourth. Actually, it's I'm Cliff Goins the fourth. I am. And then yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me at Cliff Goins the fourth there as well. And then yeah, my website is cliffgoinsthefourth.com. And so those are the different ways you can kind of connect with me. Like I said, trying to keep the news and events live and updated on the website, and we got a few things in the works, and we'll hopefully some of that stuff will play out this summer and into the fall.
As beautiful people, follow him. Cliff Goins the fourth. He's amazing. He's phenomenal. And he just has a wealth of knowledge. And I appreciate you so much for coming on Spiritual Fitness Podcast, Cliff. And if you need anything from me, you want to pick my brain, or I'm here, man. Anything I can do to help you as a brother, as a friend, just, I just feel you. And I feel like, if I can help, I want to. So let me know. But people, subscribe to the episode, download this, share it with a friend. And we out. Peace and love.